Sally Ann Bowman was born on September 11, 1987 in London, the capital of England. Her parents were Linda and Paul Bowman, and she had a close-knit, friendly family. Despite her young age, Sally was known for her maturity and desire for independence, which led her to move out of her family home and into a rented apartment where she lived alone. Modeling and fashion were her passions, and she was accepted into the prestigious British Academy of Performing Arts, an institution that boasts celebrities like Tom Holland and Adele among its alumni. Gaining admission to such a distinguished school was a remarkable achievement for her. Sally's career took a leap forward when she became the face of Swatch watches and joined a modeling agency in the city. On September 24, 2005, she spent the day relaxing at her mother's house before her sister Nicole called to invite her out for the evening. The sisters made plans and later met up with friends, heading out to a venue in the city center. Security cameras at the venue captured Sally enjoying herself and dancing at the bar. At the end of the night, she left with her sister, Nicole. Shortly after they parted ways, Sally began texting her recent ex-boyfriend, Lewis, expressing a desire to meet up with him. After sending her sister home in a taxi, Sally waited for Lewis at their agreed meeting spot, and he soon picked her up in his car. Their breakup had only happened a few weeks earlier, and emotions were still raw. Soon they began arguing in the car, and the disagreement lasted until around 4 in the morning. Afterwards, Sally got out of the car and Lewis drove off. A witness later reported being woken by a scream, then looked out the window but saw nothing. After about 5 minutes of quiet observation, they saw a man walking down the street but heard no more noises and went back to bed. Around 6:30 a.m., a neighbor stepped outside and saw what looked like a mannequin leg behind a wooden board. Upon closer inspection, they discovered the partially clothed body of Sally Bowman and immediately called the police. The police quickly began their investigation, delivering the devastating news to Linda Bowman that her daughter had been fatally stabbed.
Obviously, went downstairs, opened the door, and the gentleman in the suit said, "Are you Mrs. Bowman?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have a daughter called Sally Ann?" And the first thing I said was, "What have they done now?" Because I knew the sisters had been out together. And he said, "Can we come in?" So I said, "Yeah." And as I walked around into the lounge, I hadn't even sat down. And the next thing I knew, he just said, "She's been killed, stabbed to death."
They gathered details of the night from Linda and Nicole, piecing together a timeline. It appeared Sally had gotten out of Lewis's car, walked towards her home, and was caught off guard by a violent attack. She was stabbed at least 7 times, with 3 wounds severe enough to be fatal. An autopsy also revealed that she had been sexually assaulted. Lewis Sproston, who had argued with Sally on the night she was killed, was quickly identified as a potential suspect. He was one of the last people seen with her, making him a primary focus for the police. He was arrested that evening along with his brother and a friend. Lewis claimed he knew nothing about Sally's murder until questioned by the police and offered his cooperation. However, a DNA sample taken from him did not match the semen found on Sally's body, leading to his elimination as a suspect. The investigation took a turn when the forensic service reported that the DNA from the crime scene matched that from an unsolved sexual assault case that had occurred 4 years earlier, just 2 kilometers from where Sally was murdered. In the previously unresolved case, a woman was attacked and raped by a man who approached her while she was using a phone booth. Although the police obtained the attacker's DNA from this incident, no further clues emerged, and the case quickly went cold. As Sally's investigation unfolded, the police received troubling information about an incident that had taken place just an hour before her murder. Near Sanderstead Road, a man apologized to a woman before assaulting her while she was on her cell phone. Fortunately, a passing taxi intervened, helping the victim to the hospital and potentially preventing a more tragic outcome. The victim provided a detailed description of her attacker, which led the police to compile a report on the suspect they were pursuing. Detectives suspected that this man was also responsible for Sally's murder. Described as being in his 30s, around 180 meters tall, with short black hair, a composite sketch of him circulated widely, generating numerous calls from the public, but not significantly advancing the investigation. The only certainty was that the killer was a local, prompting the police to conduct a DNA sweep of the area. However, they faced a significant challenge. With over 6,000 addresses to check, they needed to identify the residents at each one. On the night of Sally's murder, an estimated 4,000 people were in the vicinity, making it highly unlikely that the killer would willingly provide his DNA. The investigation slowed down, and despite pursuing all leads, the detectives knew the perpetrator could strike again at any moment. In 2006, the detectives decided to adjust their strategy. They temporarily set aside Sally's case to refocus on the phone booth attack. They believed that the assailant in that case was the same person who had killed Sally, prompting them to reissue the attacker's sketch. A press conference was held to generate public attention, but a breakthrough came from an unexpected incident. During a World Cup match at a bar 30 kilometers away in Croydon, an argument broke out and spilled into the street, captured by nearby cameras. A local police officer intervened, diffusing the situation and detaining a man named Mark Dixie, aged 35. Dixie appeared nervous upon being questioned, leading to the collection of DNA samples. 12 days later, detectives received the awaited news. The DNA found on Sally's body matched Mark Dixie's DNA. Determined to prevent another tragedy, the police set out to locate Mark. Aware of the police pursuit, Mark had fled to Amsterdam after the murder. Following a 3-month stay and a landlord dispute, he returned to the UK and took up a job as a chef in a bar. The police located Mark at his workplace and arrested him there. The arresting officer distinctly remembered placing his hand on Mark's chest to prevent his escape, feeling his heartbeat through the shirt. The next day, Mark Dixie was charged with Sally Bowman's murder, remaining silent as the charges were read out against him. Mark Dixie was born in 1970. His parents separated when he was a child, and at 18 months old his mother remarried, causing him to adopt his stepfather's surname and become Mark MacDonald. However, he didn't stick with this name, choosing various aliases like Mark Philip Dixie, Mark James Down, Stephen MacDonald, and Shane Turner. In 1986, at 16, he committed his first known crime by robbing a woman at knife point in Stockwell, which resulted in a 6-week prison sentence. The following year, he was convicted of theft and received a 2-year prison term. His criminal activities persisted, leading to a conviction for indecent exposure in 1989, with an 80-hour community service sentence. Mark's criminal activities extended beyond England. In 1993, he moved to Australia, where his troubles quickly caught up with him. In Perth, a student living alone heard noises in her kitchen and was confronted by a masked and armed Mark Dixie. Tragically, she was stabbed 7 times by Mark, losing consciousness and falling victim to sexual assault. On New Year's Day, 1999, he attempted to attack a young woman jogging along the road, dragging her into the bushes to solicit sex. Just 3 days later, he was fined $750 and deported from Australia. The main focus for detectives was unraveling how Sally's murder unfolded. On the night of Sally's death, Mark attended a birthday party at a friend's house, just 100 meters from Sally's home. His friends noted that he spent the evening withdrawn, brooding, and heavily intoxicated. After his friends had gone to bed, Mark's behavior took a darker turn. Initially trying to assault a woman on Sanderstead Road, he grew frustrated when she managed to escape, thwarting his deviant intentions. He then encountered Sally Bowman, who unfortunately happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Following the murder, he casually returned to his residence, shared with 2 female friends, and fell asleep on the couch as if nothing had happened. Working with Australian authorities, investigative detectives found that Mark's DNA matched that from the student assault. In February 2008, Mark Dixie appeared in court at the Old Bailey in London, surprising everyone with his demeanor during the trial. His defense was even more surprising. He admitted to being a rapist, but claimed he stumbled upon Sally already deceased and took the opportunity to assault her. Denying responsibility for her death, he alleged that the true killer was still at large. However, his story failed to persuade the jury, who quickly returned a guilty verdict for murder. Mark Dixie was sentenced to a minimum of 34 years in prison, one of the longest sentences in England, with parole eligibility extended to when he turned 70. Before we dive into our next story, if you could take a moment to hit that like button, it would mean the world to us. A single click for you is a huge boost of encouragement for us. 50-year-old Aaron Friar, a resident of Medford, Oregon, was a father to 3 children. His 15-year-old daughter Ellie, a sophomore at South Medford High School, was a gentle and composed teenager who also played in the school band. During her freshman year, Ellie met Gavin McFarlane, and their friendship gradually blossomed into a romantic relationship. Gavin, one of the popular kids at school, was known for his temper, especially after he stopped taking his depression medication, reportedly heightening his violent tendencies. The school decided to assess whether Gavin posed a risk to himself or others. Learning about this, Aaron vehemently opposed Ellie's relationship with Gavin and did everything in his power to keep her from seeing him. Gavin, aged 19, left high school 3 months before his expected graduation date due to legal accusations made by Aaron. His relationship with Ellie soon took a toll on his social life. His friends cut all ties with him, leaving him ostracized. At 19, Gavin faced constant criticism for dating a minor, and Ellie too became an outcast. Despite these challenges, Ellie started lying to her father about her whereabouts and frequently sneaked out to meet Gavin. Gavin's closest friend was Russell Pierce Jones, a 22-year-old with 2 charges and 1 conviction. Having grown up in foster care and enduring a tough childhood, at one point becoming homeless and nearly starving to death. His main income source was a disability allowance due to severe autism and bipolar disorder, but he didn't take his medication. Frustrated with her father's strictness, Ellie contemplated running away with Gavin, and they began making plans together. Gavin shared their elopement idea with Russell, who, unbeknownst to them, had a different plan. The trio spent hours planning in detail and eventually agreed to go ahead with Russell's scheme. On the night of October 1, 2017, Ellie stayed over at a friend's place. Meanwhile, Russell and Gavin climbed through the bedroom window, only to find Aaron's girlfriend Michelle sleeping there, prompting them to flee the scene. The next morning, Aaron discovered signs of an attempted break-in and armed himself with a baseball bat for protection. The next day, on October 2nd, Gavin and Russell came back, thinking Michelle had already left. This time, Ellie was at home and saw them from the window. She discreetly let them in through the back entrance. Meanwhile, her dad, Aaron, was lounging on the couch, calmly sipping his drink. They waited patiently for the right moment to make their move. Later on, snores could be heard from the living room. Ellie quietly went down, got her dad's baseball bat, and passed it to Gavin without a sound. As Gavin crept down the dim hallway, he accidentally knocked over a trash can, which woke Aaron up. Confused, Aaron asked Ellie about the noise. Thinking fast, Ellie made up a story about a bathroom incident, convincing Aaron to go back to bed. Once Aaron fell asleep again, Gavin started hitting him with the bat, leaving Aaron bewildered and unable to grasp what was happening. Sadly, the 50-year-old couldn't survive the attack, succumbing to his injuries within minutes. Gavin and Russell then carried Aaron's body to the car, while Ellie cleaned up the area with a towel she had brought from home. She then checked on her younger sisters, Sierra and Olivia, asking if they noticed anything out of the ordinary. The sisters mentioned hearing their father's alarmed voice. In the early morning hours, Aaron's girlfriend phoned 911 at around 6:45 a.m., reporting Aaron and Ellie missing. His other two daughters woke up to find blood in the house and realized their father and sister were gone. When the Medford police arrived, they spoke with the 11 and 8-year-old girls, but the older sister had more information to share. She recalled hearing a familiar voice the previous evening, that of her sister's 19-year-old boyfriend, Gavin McFarlane. Meanwhile, the trio on the run had already disposed of Aaron and the Bat, stopping at Walmart to buy makeup for Ellie. An arrest warrant was issued for Gavin, and soon after, a police officer spotted the trio walking down the street, handcuffed them, and detained them. During her interrogation, Ellie claimed that her father deserved what happened because he was physically and verbally abusive towards her. She alleged that he was an alcoholic and a violent man who had verbally degraded her in the past. Ellie also disclosed that Aaron would lie beside her at night and gratify himself, hinting at his troubled past. Throughout her interrogation, she maintained a look of sincerity, although at one point she lied about her name and age and displayed indifference towards the detectives. In his interrogation, Gavin McFarlane confessed to killing Ellie's father with a baseball bat. He revealed that Ellie was pregnant, a fact he had known for 2 weeks, and that she had recently been harassed by her father. He claimed his sole intention was to protect Ellie, driven to anger by what she had told him, and also alleged that the idea to kill her father was hers. However, subsequent tests proved that Ellie was not pregnant, revealing that she had used the claim to manipulate Gavin. There was also no evidence found to support the allegations of Aaron harassing Ellie or her sisters. The detectives faced their most challenging moments during the interrogation of Russell Jones, who behaved oddly, making bizarre gestures and cracking jokes.
Her to me. Tell him to release Gavin. And Ellie, thank you. And I know I'm being recorded. I'm sorry, buddy, but Ooh. Oh, MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O.
Gavin McFarlane was found guilty of the murder of Aaron Friar and sentenced to life in prison, eligible for parole at age 45. Russell Jones was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and received a 15-year prison sentence. Lastly, Ellie Friar was found guilty of conspiracy in her father's murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison. Before we conclude this video, please be aware that the video on the left may be disturbing. It is recommended for adult viewing only. On the right, you'll find a playlist of videos that have been highly appreciated by our viewers.